Welcome to another episode of Seaview Circle, our recap podcast in which we review our favorite television shows of the past, present, and possibly the future. And we do this all with the end goal of determining whether our viewing taste is highbrow or lowbrow.
Now, in our previous episode, we were actually doing a little bit of some tabulation to find out where are we? Where are we on this journey? We found out our average Browmeter score currently from all the seasons and series that we've been covering is a 3.6 out of 5.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And what do you think? Where do you think it's going to go today? Did you get your Browmeter score for what we're covering today?
Oh, I do kind of have a Browmeter score in mind.
Yeah, me too.
Overall.
Me too.
Yeah,
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
Now, what was that Browmeter score a result of? What seasons and series have we been covering thus far?
Well, we've been doing season 1 of Knots Landing, and then we've also been doing season 3 of Yellow Jackets. We have a lot of content up on our YouTube page and Spotify channel, so you can check that out.
Yes. Now, you may have noticed that for this particular episode, the graphics are a little different. Maybe the set design is a little different. So why is that, Doug?
Well, so by special request, we are checking into the White Lotus, sharing our thoughts on season 3.
Yes, we had gotten a lot of comments on YouTube, people suggesting that we cover the White Lotus as it was airing about 6 weeks ago. But that was concurrent with Yellow Jackets season 3, and we just knew that we would not be able to give both series the energy and the commitment that they both deserved if we did them concurrently. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to offer all of our thoughts on season 3 as a whole. We'll go through sort of like storyline by storyline, character by character, and discuss what we liked and all that kind of good stuff. Now, before we get into that, though, we do have a letter from the Sack. Would you care to read that for us?
I would love to read that. This comes from TNate6004 on YouTube. Never watched Dallas, but I vividly recall watching the debut of Knots Landing, sitting in our very 70s family room and smoking Viceroys. Parents were out of town and my grandma was staying with us. Being a fan of the more traditional daytime soap, Knots struck a chord because, as you mentioned, it was a show about regular people doing regular things, like giving someone a home perm in the kitchen while the drama of their lives played out. Just started watching your podcast, and I'm enjoying the level of detail you go into. Looking forward to you covering the episode Moment of Truth, which was my late boyfriend Ross's favorite episode. Ooh.
So I will say this obviously was a comment on one of our Knots Landing podcasts. In fact, it was the one that celebrated the 45th anniversary. So I think it was like the last episode of our first season. And the person references Moment of Truth, which is an episode from season 2. So all you original Sea Viewer fans from the Knots Landing days, don't worry, we are working on this behind the scenes right now.
We've been diligently watching.
Yes, this is just a one-off special edition for the White Lotus, and the next episode, we promise, will start diving into season 2 of Knots Landing. We will be covering this particular episode. I don't know if you know off the top of your head what that episode is.
I feel like we just saw it.
No, we haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. No, then I didn't.
We haven't seen it yet in our rewatch, but of course you have seen this episode a few times,
I've seen it.
And it is a really fun one. So when we get to it, we'll talk about it. But we're going to do things a little bit differently for season 2. Instead of going episode by episode, we are going to go kind of like story arc or kind of character, kind of like what we're going to do today for the White Lotus. So hopefully this format works, and I believe that episode will probably be in our podcast that covers Kenny and Ginger. I think that one. Okay.
Cool.
Now, how can people get in contact with us if they would like to leave us a message, Doug?
Well, you can email us, which is the easiest way and probably the most personal. It's SeaviewCircle, SEEVIEW circle @gmail.com. Or obviously you can go to our YouTube channel or Spotify or even our TikTok.
Yes. I have to tell you, the more comments, the more likes, the better. It really helps the algorithm assist others in finding our channel. It's a free way to support what we do. We really would appreciate it.
And the like button is a friend too. So
just
please,
do it.
Like maybe when you check into our channel, first thing you could do is just like it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A new episode comes out, you just like it, like from the get-go.
Yeah. So you don't forget. I actually do that on all of the people that I watch on YouTube. That's one of the first things I remind myself, like, just don't forget to like it. I mean, I'm watching it, but like, I do want to support them. So that's the easiest way that anybody can support a channel.
Absolutely. And we are also on Blue Sky as well. And that handle is the same all throughout. Seaview Circle, SEEVIEW Circle. If you're just joining us for the White Lotus, by the way, my name is Brady.
I'm Doug.
And Seaview Circle is the name of the fictional cul-de-sac where the residents of Knots Landing live. So that's the connection there, if you didn't understand or know where that comes from.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what we've been doing sideways here?
I have to say, I mean,
besides Seaview Circle,
I really want you all to be patient with our content. I know we've kind of promised the Knots Landing to come out like months ago, but we've been super busy with a slew of DJ gigs. We're also DJs, and we actually work with Disney and Hulu on some of their FYC parties. And so what that in a way does is it adds a little bit of more TV viewing homework to our already busy TV viewing schedule, because in order to provide like the best DJ set we can for a show that maybe we haven't seen, we need to watch it.
Actually, it's a really good way for us to get turned on to other shows too, because let's just talk facts for everybody out there. There's so much content. So sometimes it's like you're going to miss something and maybe you're going to catch it later. So this has made us like check into maybe a couple shows we wouldn't have checked into right away necessarily. And I was surprised and happy to see that.
We should do a Browmeter for all those other shows, even if we're not covering them, to keep bulking up our Browmeter overall score. We could say, okay, Dying for Sex, Browmeter. You know what I mean? We could do that.
Yeah, we should
we'll
try
do that. Not today, because we're not prepared for that.
We're not ready for that today.
Today, we are going to be covering the White Lotus Season 3.
So on that note, here's something I prepared earlier.
Okay. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Should I be concerned?
No, never concerned here.
What is that exactly?
It's a little kind of like a pina colada.
Look
at that.
Oh,
I hope it doesn't go all over the place. Here. Chin chin.
Okay.
See ya.
See you then.
See you later.
Okay. Well, it's ironic.
It's a little bitter.
Yes, it's ironic that you chose this as a beverage accompaniment, because we are going to start off talking about the Ratliff family, okay? Because how we're going to do this is we're going to break it down sort of like character group by character group. Now, obviously, in these character groups, there's kind of like multiple stories, maybe in certain circumstances, especially with this family, I think.
Yeah.
Got a couple of different things going on. But let's start off with talking about kind of like the white elephant in the room. White elephant? We're going to talk about Miss Parker Posey here, because I don't know if you can see this. So while we were watching Yellow Jackets, we were seeing the social media response to White Lotus, and so many people were talking about Parker Posey. Like,
right.
You know, her being kind of like the scene stealer, everybody's talking about her.
Well, and again, I think what it is that audience in particular, the younger audience, has never seen her in anything. So they don't know who she is.
Right.
So, of course, like, you and I know who she is.
Yeah.
You more so than me, because in the 90s, actually, you were tuned into Parker Posey.
I was definitely tuned into Parker Posey in the 90s. And the funny thing is that the first thing I ever saw her in is actually As the World Turns.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize she was on that.
Yeah. And she might have been doing those episodes right around the time that the movie Dazed and Confused came out, or maybe she was filming it, because she looks pretty much the same. And she had a Southern drawl on As the World Turns, playing this character.
Well, isn't she from the South? Probably. I think she is. I think she is.
So anyway, she does a very good job at that accent, but she's been doing it for years. So it wasn't, to me, whenever I would see those little clips on social media, I wasn't like, oh my God. I mean, yes, it's funny. Yes, she's funny. She's very funny in the show. But it wasn't like a surprise to me, as we're watching the full episodes. I thought she did a really great job of acting this character. It wasn't all just funny. It wasn't all fun and jokes. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
I thought it was.
She really felt. It did feel like some of these people say that I know that in my past I've encountered who are from the South and are a little hoity-toity. They've got like, nouveau riche kind of thing. I mean, we can talk about that later.
Well, yeah. I mean, we can talk about it now because that's part of what this storyline is, really, right?
I mean, they definitely hit the nail on the head. I just know from all the years that we worked in the boutique hotel industry, that was like kind of a sideline for me and for Brady. We ended up doing this for several years, and that's how we actually met.
In New York City, yeah.
And I worked at one in London, too, the same company. So the thing is, I would see people like this all the time who would show up, especially being in another country. They are just like a fish out of water, so to
Doug was a
speak.
bellman, and I was like a front desk agent, front desk supervisor, whatever. So our interactions with the guests were a little bit different, but I think you probably have more of the type of experiences that we see on the White Lotus.
Totally. And I did a little bit of concierge there too.
Yeah.
So it was very much like very high end, very wealthy people coming to town who have no clue about where the hell they are, or like they're just coming there the first time. The whole family, kids don't really care. Like the parents want to take them to these places, and it's just, I just feel like Mike White did such a great job with this storyline.
Overall, his work on this and the other 2 seasons to capture this type of this interaction. It's kind of like an upstairs, downstairs kind of vibe, right? You have the staff and then you have the guests.
Totally.
And it's a really good interplay. I don't think we've seen it presented in such a way that is so natural and so like on the nose of what is really going on at these types of places. So
yeah, I mean, we always joked about this too. I remember at the time, I always wanted to do this thing. I thought for years where it was like Confessions of a Bellman or Bellboy, because there were so many sordid, crazy things that I knew of that happened, and then things that I would hear of, and of course, other people that we worked with. I mean, let's face it, there's so much dirt that just goes on within the hotel,
right?
And then with the guests too. And again, when I worked in them, where it was very high level, we would be working with, you say, celebrities or people who wanted certain things, and it was just, it could get crazy.
So that factors into this particular season as well, because there is an actress who is staying at the White Lotus. This is in Thailand this season. I don't want to necessarily get into what is your favorite season quite yet, but I do think that this particular season felt comfortable for you and I. Because we have both actually traveled to Thailand together, but this specific location of Koh Samui, you have been.
Actually, I had gone so I've been to Thailand twice. And the first time I went to Thailand many years ago, it was kind of off the back of going to Australia. And then it was terrible weather. My friend and I decided well, we've got a layover in Thailand. Let's just go, let's go to one of the islands. So we didn't even know where we were going, but we flew to Bangkok. We stayed for the night, remember, in Bangkok. And then we just tried to figure out, let's go island hopping. So we ended up going to Koh Samui. And I mean, that airport that they showed in there, I recognize that airport.
Okay.
It's just, it's kind of indoor, outdoor type of thing. So where we stayed was a place called Chaweng Beach, which is probably, I think it's about 7 kilometers kind of south from this area. Now, I didn't go to this particular area, and I could see this is more mountainous.
This is gorgeous, by the way.
Yeah, and I think where I was staying was more there were definitely very bougie beach resorts near us, but where we stayed, because it was, 1, cheap, and 2, it was more the hippie kind of area where it was more stoners and stuff. Yeah. And as you would go south, then you would see all these really fancy resorts and stuff just along the beach. And then the village, when they go to the village, it really reminded me of going to the village and the island too, because when I stayed there, we would go to drag show every night at this gay bar.
Doug and I, we went to Phuket actually. Yeah. So that was kind of the vibes.
It's again, similar
vibes there. And then of course,
Karan Beach Club. We stayed at this place in Phuket that was very fancy.
Yeah.
Maybe not as exclusive as that, but
as
very.
The White Lotus, but I definitely felt very familiar when they would go. Everybody would go to breakfast every single morning.
Yeah.
And they're always eating the dragon fruit, and it's like this is what happens every morning at these types of places. And then of course, during maybe you go to the beach or you go to the pool for a little bit, and then you kind of venture off into the village in the afternoon or maybe into the night. So I think they did a really good job of capturing the essence of what it is like to be vacationing in Thailand. I really appreciated a lot of that. Now, talking about this Ratliff family, again, going back to the Parker Posey, I want to say, again, just a shout out before we kind of touch off of her. One of my favorite movies, we've already referenced it once before on this podcast, Party Girl, came out in 95. So a little bit after that. And then, of course, she did so many other great roles. So if you are of the younger generation, you were just exposed to Parker Posey in this role, you should definitely check out her other stuff, Waiting for Guffman, all the, what's the Best in Show. All those are such great films. Drop a number 2 in the comment if you were already a fan of Parker Posey before the White Lotus. Okay. Now, okay. So at the core of this Ratliff storyline, this family, of course, is the father, Timothy, who is portrayed by Jason Isaacs. I think he did a really, really good job. One of my favorite, I think, acting performances of this particular season. And obviously he's playing this gentleman who is in charge of this family that is accustomed to a certain way of living, as we've already discussed.
Yes.
And he has done some shady business dealings to maintain that wealth. I think they mention embezzlement, some money laundering, some good stuff like that. And he does receive a call pretty early on in the vacation that is from Ki Hui Kwan, right? Okay, well, the voice of.
The voice
right?
of.
And he finds out that they're raiding the offices and, you know.
And he gets a couple phone calls from reporters as well.
That's right.
So they're all asking, like, can you comment? And he's like, I can't comment. So obviously you can see that, like, this vacation for him is not going to be a chill out.
And it's interesting because here at the White Lotus, they have suggested that everybody turn in their phones and their laptops and sort of unplug from electronics for the week to get the maximum
experience.
Yes. And which at first this family is reticent to do, but as soon as Tim starts getting these calls and everything, he realizes, oh, shit. We need to turn in the phones and the electronics so that the family does not become aware, because they start calling the middle son.
Well, the middle son
child,
is working
Saxon.
with the dad too.
Right.
So that's the issue, is that they're kind of tied together. So if he's going to check in on work, and I'm sure like it would have been those things where if they live in such a small town or wherever they live.
They're from North Carolina.
Right? But I mean, I'm sure the gossip is out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, especially in that kind of a town.
In that kind of community too, right? Everybody kind of sticks together. So while the Parker Posey character, her name is Victoria, while she is downing the lorazepams, claiming that it's due to jet lag, but really that's how she gets through life, he ends up stealing them, right?
Yeah, she gives him one first,
right.
And then he gets kind of hooked on it.
Right, he could see how he could de-escalate his anxiety.
Right, and then I think what happens is she hides. Remember, they go on the boat, and she has the whole pack in her purse, and the husband steals them out of her bag, so like kind of blames it on somebody else, so that he's got the stash of them now. And of course, he continues taking quite a few.
He's really avoiding everything here. This is what this whole storyline is for him, is this avoidance. And what do you think about that? I mean, obviously it was something where you're just like, dude, like he was given so many opportunities to say to his wife or his children what's going on, and he...
Well, I mean, I think the thing that he kept getting, and they showed us in the storyline too, was those references that she would say something, which I'm sure she didn't necessarily mean it, but to him, it was hitting harder when it was like, oh, I couldn't possibly live being poor, blah, 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 blah. Right. So it's like, then that pressure for him as the breadwinner is like, oh boy, I'm destroying all their lives. You know?
And it was a really good juxtaposition that they did here, obviously, in the writing of these characters, that the daughter that's the whole reason why they're in Thailand, by the way, on this vacation, is that the daughter wants to write her thesis on Buddhism, and she wants to go to this sanctuary and do some meditation with this particular monk or whatever. And she's read all of his books, and they meant a lot to her. And obviously, in Buddhism, it's all about giving up all of this stuff, all of these earthly possessions, all these things that the family has sort of built into their lives, or Tim has built into his lives, all these bad things he's done to attain that wealth to provide for his family. Buddhism is completely the opposite
Polar
of
opposite.
that. So that's why die, the mother, Victoria, has to say those lines, oh, I could never do what she's about to do, right? Give up everything to go do this. So that's that turmoil that he is struggling with. And it gets real interesting as the days progress. He starts considering offing himself to relieve the pressure.
What happens through the storyline is that he steals this gun and he has full intention of killing himself. Then he starts to dream up the scenario that it's going to be like he's going to kill the children, he's going to kill the wife. But then he kind of sees the scenario in his head of like what it does, and then he kind of backs off on all of it. So thank goodness he does not do that. But, he probably still would have done it had he found the gun.
Yeah,
but
it is interesting, that timing. Him stealing the gun, but then Gaitok coming in and finding it really saved their lives unknowingly, because at that timing, he was ready to do it. Right?
Well, and ultimately, that character, as we will talk about, is infinitely good. He's a good person.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, that whole thing. But
right.
talk about that later.
So what ends up happening is when the gun is missing, then he is still feeling so anxious, and he runs out of the lorazepam at this point, and it's getting closer to the end of the vacation. And again, we should talk a little bit, I guess, more about the daughter as well. She spends the night at the monastery because she basically Victoria, her mother, suggests that she at least try that, and if she can survive a night at the monastery eating whatever food they're eating and living this more humble life, then she will allow her to stay in Thailand for a year or whatever. Because she actually reveals that she doesn't have a thesis at all. She literally was just coming to check this place out because she wanted to follow this guy who the mother, Victoria, says is a cult leader.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the way she sees it. She doesn't even know they're in Thailand. She could be in Taiwan. You know what I mean? So she is not into this kind of spirituality or looking inward and seeing what you can do to make your life better or help others, right? So Piper, she spends the evening and she decides that she is not cut out for it.
Right. She's not cut out for it. But remember, the brother also comes along, who is the tag-along. He's ready to do anything to help any of his family members, as we see.
He is a people pleaser.
He's a pleaser.
He's a pleaser.
So he, I think, goes along with the sister because he thinks it's the right thing to do, right?
Right.
So he's prepared to stay there, too, with her.
So when she sees that and she realizes, oh, gosh, I don't want to, mess up his life as well when I'm not even really sure what I'm doing, she decides that, no, she is not going to do this. She has to own who she is. She's this white woman of privilege from this family. And again, that pressure is then reinforced, really, right? Because Tim knows that when they go home, it is all going to be over. They've already raided the offices. They're like, oh, you better lawyer up. Da-da-da-da-da. It's too late. You're probably going to do some jail time. You're probably going to lose everything, the house, everything. So what does he do? He thinks of one other way. He remembers that when they first arrived at the White Lotus, there was some fruit or something that had fallen out of the tree. And one of the people that works at the hotel says, oh, don't eat that because it has poisonous seeds.
So he collects a bunch of the fruit and he starts taking out the pits and he grinds them up. Puts them in the blend tech.
This is why I'm worried.
Well, I would never do such a thing. You didn't see me grinding anything up, did you? You'll find out.
I was in the shower for 20 minutes.
Probably if I did, you'd already be slumped over in the chair.
Yeah, so this is really, really interesting because he realizes that Lochlan, the youngest son, is the only one who really is pure in the family. After these last couple of revelations, he realizes that his daughter, his son, Saxon, and his wife cannot live a poor, humble life. So he decides that he's going to make this drink and he is going to drink it himself and he's going to ask the others. It's a very Jim Jones.
Yeah, it's very Jim
moment,
Jones,
right?
In a way. I mean, let's face it.
I mean, he's the cult leader in this scenario, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So they all start to drink it. They can all tell something is off because it's supposed to be a pina colada.
Flavor's not so good.
And he just can't do it. He looks at his son, trying to drink this. and he just can't do it. So he pushes the glass out of his hands. It crashes to the ground, and then they have some wine because this is celebrating their last night in Thailand, basically. And then, unfortunately,
well, there's still some.
Oh, by the way,
the
what I was going to think at that moment is that I thought that they were all going to drink it and they were all going to die, which is so dark. By the way, this season's pretty dark.
did think it was going to maybe go that route too.
And then I thought that Lochlan was going to be the only one left over. And then he was going to get his phone back or whatever at some point, and he was going to find out that whatever the problem was back home had been rectified and there was no issue.
That would have been a good thing, too. That would have been very dark as well. Remember, because he was not allowed to have the drink.
Because he was underage, but really it was because the father wanted to.
But he was sure allowed to have the ecstasy. Or whatever that was.
Well, he was drinking beer like crazy.
Chloe, and also when Chloe got the drugs, they were having a whale of a time.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about Chloe.
Well, I can't wait to talk about Chloe. But, I mean, so the crossover, though, is between Lochlan and Saxon. Obviously, their storyline fits into the other characters of the show, which is why, it's good. I kind of thought there might be even a little bit more crossover, though, between some of the other characters. So it was interesting to see, like, how far are you going to move this storyline into that storyline?
I thought it was clever. I thought it's a good puzzle. And I'm glad they kind of kept some people a little separate from the rest of it, because it gives you a different flavor. It's not all colored by the same antics that are going on.
Well, like sometimes when you watch these things, it could end up being the whole show ends up integrating into everything. And I think that's the thing. It would have been a lot to keep track of. So I really enjoyed it.
The storyline with Saxon and Lochlan is one of, we'll say, youthful experimentation on the part of Lochlan. Obviously, he has some queer feelings. He sees his brother nude, and he is turned on to a certain extent.
Well, I think it's also he looks up to the brother, right? Because the brother is the example of the man that he could be.
Yes.
Like, physically.
That maybe his family expects him to be.
Right. Physically or whatever. So, he is not at that age yet. So he can look up to him. And Saxon, let's face it, he's, as they said, such a douche.
Oh, my God.
And he just says the douchiest stuff that you've ever heard. All those remarks about, like ladies,
Oh, my God.
What a jerk.
Oh,
I mean, but
God.
we've all seen people like that.
Right.
So I think what's interesting, too, is from the beginning of the season to the end of this season with him, at least he's still a douche.
Yeah.
But he's way less of a douche. Like, he's definitely evolving a little bit.
He's definitely evolving and good, because what he's going to have to face when he gets home is going to be a complete readjustment of his life. Yeah. So maybe that is the start of a process for him where he will have some growth. Now, what ends up happening is that they go out with these other girls, Chloe and Chelsea. And they have this wild night of partying. It is the Songkran festival. And so they go into town, they do all these drugs, and they party. Everybody's partying.
They are partying.
And Lochlan is he's only 18, I think, is what they established. So he's not really, maybe you can drink when you're 18.
I think in Thailand you can drink when
It doesn't really matter. It's irrelevant. But the point is that they're all very inebriated. And I think that Chloe and Chelsea have been kind of playing with these boys all throughout their week there, because their boyfriends are otherwise occupied. They're much older, rich boyfriends are otherwise occupied. So they're kind of using these little American boys as toys for the week. And it gets so crazy that in this moment, the two girls try to make out or whatever, or they're making out with each other, sort of teasing.
Just teasing, goofing. They're doing what you call blue balls.
Yes,
giving
that
them
is
blue
what
balls.
they're doing.
They're
that
giving
is
them
what
blue
they're
balls.
doing.
They're whatever.
Right. So it is very suggestive then that the two brothers kiss, and they kind of do, but they kind of do. I mean, obviously Saxon is not into that whatsoever. Like, he's such a bro, like, blah, blah, blah. But definitely the younger one is, again, he's more questioning, or maybe he's queer, bisexual. We don't really know what his
we don't know
story
what his deal is.
But, he was under a lot of pressure from his brother to get laid that particular week. Do you remember? I mean, that was one of the things. That was one of the goals by the end of the week. So he accomplished that goal, if you will. But then the next morning, of course, they all have to sort of reconcile what went down.
Right. And they had taken so much drugs and drank so much booze that they don't really remember. Everything is very fuzzy. Right. But they do know. You could see, they sense something has gone a little off, And I mean, let's face it, we've done that in our youth, haven't we? I mean, I can remember times being like,
I don't have a brother.
Don't remember. Not like that, but I'm just saying, you went out and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
Do you remember? Like,
sure.
Did we go out and party all night? Like, what happened?
Oh, I've definitely had a blackout moment where I woke up at a bus stop. Yeah.
I had a blackout moment too that I don't want to.
Let's talk about it. So anyway, they have to reconcile this, and I think it's Saxon who says, "Let's just never talk about this again. Whatever happened." And again, I think it does tie into what happens at the monastery. Whoever played the monk, we found out later it was like a TV personality, a Thai TV personality. I think that gentleman did a really good job. He's not really an actor, but he's, a presenter. And those scenes, I think, were some of the most kind of important, actually, for the whole season, and really for the whole series. I kind of stumbled there because it's talking about the kind of the morality, right? And there's a line somewhere, I don't remember when it is said, but someone says the trick to life is to know when to stop. And it might be that Frank character played by Sam Rockwell. Who says that.
Yeah, I think it was him.
Because he's chasing the party. He's chasing the party. He's chasing the pleasure.
Yeah.
And so they talk about that in the monastery. The monk says about how your whole life, you start up, you go up like this, and then you go down, right? And they show that.
Like the drop of water. Remember, they're talking about the water coming up from the wave or whatever, or down, so it's like the symbolic thing of
and
life.
Those shots of the waves and the water, that's in every season. You notice that they show that in every one. But I think it was really a great moment here where they're tying in these vices, right? Whether it's sexual pleasure, whether it's drugs or alcohol, or whether it's greed, obviously with the father, and then also revenge with the Rick character.
Yeah.
So all these things are, and again, that line, knowing when to stop, because the Rick character does not stop.
He does not.
And that
leads to his downfall.
Yeah. All right. So the only thing we really should say left about the Rat List, we've been about this for a while, is that how it sort of ends, unfortunately, is that there is leftover remnants of the seeds in the blender the next morning. And young Lochlan, who's been told by his brother all week long, you need to be, bulking up and taking some of the protein. And he tries forcing it on him all throughout the week, and he doesn't want to do it. And then so the last day, I think
he figures
Saxon says, "Oh no, you got to do it yourself."
Yeah. And it's like, hey, it's the last day. Maybe I'll bulk up today.
So unfortunately, there are still seeds in the pitcher. And we do see Lochlan start to experience this poison, and he maybe throws up a little bit, and then he
staggers out to the pool or whatever.
And he envisions. He says he sees. He wakes up. He wakes up. They do a good job of
he's doing that whole underwater thing, right? Yeah. He has a unearthly experience, whatever that might be. Didn't he say, "I think I saw God"?
He says he thinks he saw God, and what's interesting is that
it's probably an NDE,
where I would say
near-death
looked like
experience.
4 monks.
Yeah,
right. I thought that was
that's right. Yeah, it's like he pretty much had a near-death experience.
Yeah,
so he had something mystical.
And I think the way
him.
they framed this particular season, and really probably every season of White Lotus, they kind of start with what happens at the end, and then they go back and show you, throughout the week. So we remember there being like a floating body in the water, and we didn't really, we were trying to think. There were a lot of gunshots.
I think that's why I was kind of convinced that maybe they're all going to die too, because at the beginning, the first episode, there's just so many gunshots, and it's just mayhem. And you're going like, oh boy, this is not good. I also kept thinking, how is this going to play out so quick? Yeah. Now, it was a long last episode. Yes. It was like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But I felt good at the end. They told all the things that I mean, there's certain things I'd like to know more about, but I felt satisfied.
I think we're going to lead to it right now because you would mention it. So Lachlan's not dead. He throws up again and he's alive. The father is very happy, obviously, and then because we had just seen other characters die, we'll get to it. But so when he comes back to life, springs back to life, you're kind of happy because he was really the only pure one, kind of almost the only pure one of the entire cast. But then the last scene of the family, of course, is them going back on the boat.
And getting their cell phones back.
And so Timothy knows that this is going to be the moment. This is the wave of all this news coming to, like the tsunami that they discussed earlier in the season. This is the tsunami that is going to affect the family right there and then. And I think you had said, I kind of wish we had seen that. But in a way, I don't think that's the point, because I think ultimately the storyline here is that the father actually did learn something from the monk in that moment. I mean, obviously he was okay with letting the daughter stay there.
Yeah.
Well, partly because he knew that if she was there, she wouldn't have to deal with everything that's going on.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
But anyway, so he definitely has changed, and this was now going to be the moment of reckoning. But it was like, that was okay. That was the moment. We didn't really need to see that. It's almost like the other missed opportunity, if you will, would have been to see Victoria talking to the monk, but that wasn't what the story was about.
Right.
Even though that would have been funny and amusing, the story was about the father and him having to come to terms with being open and honest with his family. So I think it was good. And I think we are left with seeing that maybe this other asshole of the family, Saxon, maybe we'll see some.
Right. Maybe some good maybe they'll come out better versions of themselves. They can't, let's put it this way. It can't be that difficult for them to become better versions of themselves.
Exactly.
Because they were pretty terrible at the beginning.
Like most people on the show.
Yeah. So there you go.
All right. So moving on to our next little group of characters, we're going to talk about the ladies.
Which set of ladies are we talking about?
We're going to talk
the actress, the actress, and the lawyer, and the what does the other girl do?
She just raises a family and
lady of leisure in Austin.
Yes.
I found out a little fun little tidbit, but I guess I could mention it. I was talking about the show the other day with a good friend of mine who lived in LA for quite a while, now lives in London. I hadn't seen her for a couple years, so we were just catching up. But I was telling her, like, we've been doing the podcast on Yellow Jackets, and then when I mentioned that we're doing White Lotus season 3, she's like, I'm good friends with Leslie Bibb, and Sam Rockwell. I thought, that's fun. So I guess they used to all live in the same kind of compound in Hollywood, in the 90s.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, she's good friends with them. But anyway, she said they're very lovely. You could tell, even when you was watching the performances, even when her character comes off as like right-wingy or whatever, and you get a little frightened. But you can see she's...
Well, I think
she's a good person.
I think that is a real experience.
No, it is a real experience.
I mean, that's, I think, the overall takeaway from this particular storyline, which I would say, again, is more the isolated storyline from all the others, is that it's about a group of long-term friends and how your relationship changes over the years and how each individual changes depending on the life that they sort of choose to live, or maybe sometimes are forced to live, or whatever it is. That experience changes who you were. If you all met in high school, you're going to be a very different person.
Oh, totally.
I mean, for her, if she moves to Dallas or Austin and she meets a guy and they end up going to church and she's surrounded by people who are that is going to be who she has become, but she's still also the person she was in high school. And I think that's kind of...
Yeah. I think what they did, though, they did a really good job of talking about those friendships and how important they really are. And I will say, I felt it. I didn't want to get, I don't normally get worked up by stuff like this.
There's tears in his eyes a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm serious. I got worked up because I think when I was younger, I wouldn't think so much about that being important. But these days, when I look at some of those long friendships that I have with people that I've known, since I was 16 or maybe a little later too, those are so important to me at this point in my life. Now, I know we're not all necessarily on the same page. I'd say, though, in general, when I meet up with my friends, I feel like I could just pick up where we left off. So it's not too awkward. Now, I don't know if it was the same case for the 3 ladies, because they had some unfinished business to talk about, or of course they were bitching behind each other's
would say
backs.
There's probably a
stuff.
difference as well, and I'm going to say something that I hope is not controversial here, but we've talked about this in the past. I do think that female relationships or friendships maybe are a little different from male relationships or female-male relationships, right?
I imagine, but I'm not a female,
right?
So I don't
it's
know,
hard to say, but it didn't take them very long. After meeting together for a very long time, they said they hadn't seen each other in years. I think I remember them saying,
yeah.
And then for them to only after a day or two to start kind of talking about each other behind their backs. It didn't take very long for that to happen, even though they were very gracious about one another when they were all three together. But I guess the thing is, like, for this particular group, one of them is an actress with a profession, which is obviously something that is, typically maybe a little bit more self-indulgent, a little bit narcissistic. So that's already built into that relationship where she's the one that brought them there. She paid for
She
the
paid
villa,
for everybody.
And she wants to do that in her mind to ground herself. Now, of course, she wants to see her friends as well, but there's definitely a selfishness that is in that character that is expressed throughout the week, because she has that boyfriend back at home, the much younger boyfriend apparently, who is, I guess, also an actor.
Yeah.
He's unable to be reached. So she's like, well, I gotta
get something.
Let's do something. And they do.
By the way, do you want some more of this?
Oh, yeah.
Here,
yes, seeds be damned.
Now you're going to get all the seeds.
Oh, no, this is the bottom. Get
the bottom of the barrel. I'll take some more of that. Get rid of it.
Now, it's funny that we're talking about this particular storyline right now because Donna Mills, Abby on Knots Landing, they are doing a podcast called We're Not Done Yet. Donna Mills, Michelle Lee, and Joan Van Ark. And in one of the episodes, she talks about watching the White Lotus, and particularly this particular storyline. She talks about the three friends. And I think when they're talking about it, it's like maybe she's only in a couple episodes into the series, so she doesn't really know how it ends. But I'd be curious to know, maybe they could talk about it after watching the whole thing to see what that dynamic really is like, because we know these characters. We know each of these characters in a way, right? We certainly know the Laurie character played by Carrie Coon. Like, we know who this person is. We lived in New York. We know that vibe. We know the actress vibe. We certainly know that.
Sure do.
And so I just think they did a really good job of having those kind of stock characters, if you will, played by three really good actresses.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to see them in all these little exploits, right? We mentioned the Songkran Festival with the water fight.
Oh, that was so fun to see them being completely they thought that they were going out looking like the shit.
Yeah.
And then the kids are squirting them with the water bottles. It's like they don't care. And then even at that one point, all the people are waiting outside. Like they're in the shop, right? And they're waiting outside to spray them with water. That was so really good. I was not familiar with that festival.
Yeah.
And I guess, I don't know if that's a certain time. It must be a certain time of year, so I don't think I was there. But that to me was just so funny to hear about that or see that. And I wonder if, so the creator, Mike White, do you think, I know that he's been on Survivor multiple times, right? Isn't it?
Well, far he's only been on one season, but he is currently filming, probably right now, season 50, which, can you believe this? Season 50, so they're having a bunch of returning people. And so Mike White, the creator, writer, director of White Lotus, is going to go back to Survivor.
So crazy.
In fact, I think he had a couple of his people from his particular season were cast as I
saw that there was a couple little side roles here of people.
I don't remember them
that
screen,
there was one that even said, did it say Natalie Cole?
It did, but it's someone else.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I was just reading. I was like, I didn't see Natalie Cole.
I don't think Natalie Cole is with us any longer.
Oh, I don't think so either. That's true.
The singer, Natalie Cole. Okay, so anyway, I see what you're kind of saying, like Mike White. I don't know whether.
I wonder if he spent some time there, I'm sure he's been there, obviously, but I'd be curious to know whether, had he ever stayed there for weeks at a time?
I don't know,
because that's the thing, people.
Survivor is filmed mostly in Fiji now. I don't know what his season was, but I will say that it is a really great backdrop, Thailand. Again, what we were talking about earlier, the morality, because it is such a juxtaposition. There is so much pleasure seeking in
Totally.
Thailand.
I mean, it's really fun. It's really crazy.
I had a great time in Thailand. We actually went to Phuket, we went to Bangkok, we went to Koh Phi Phi for the day, and we went to Chiang Mai.
Chiang Mai.
And so again, like I say, there's so much pleasure seeking. Remember, we went to Pat Pong district in Bangkok, which is just absolutely wild. I can't even say the things that we saw just on a menu walking down the street of things that could happen.
There's so many things. That's why I kept thinking when they went to that big nightclub in Bangkok too, I was thinking to myself, I'm sure. I mean, I didn't see it, but I could imagine. My God,
it was referenced. You know what I mean? It was referenced just visually. We know what's going on in this club elsewhere. Crazy stuff. But then again, you also have this. I don't know what the word you want to use, but there is. You see monks in procession almost everywhere. Certainly in Chiang Mai, I think, was a huge presence there. That's where I think a lot of people go to do maybe some of this meditation studies. Certainly throughout that northern region, there are a lot of beautiful Buddhist monuments. We actually visited one. It was kind of under construction when we were up there. We went to the Chiang Dao Caves. So anyway, I just think that it is a really great dramatic backdrop for this type of show because you do have that juxtaposition.
And even just going back to the characters too, I mean, I think that's where I felt it so much with the Thai actors too. Really were giving it. For the most part, I mean, I know the one Mook, she was obviously enthralled with the bad boys and all that kind of stuff. But the two other male characters, Gaitok, and then the other guy who Pornchai, they seem just so pure and sweet. And that is what I always remember about being in Thailand, that people are just so pure. It's kind of like you get taken aback because they are.
That juxtaposition I talk about, you can have the scene where the three ladies go to the crazy bar and they're dancing with all the Russian dudes. And they did a really good job, I think, of capturing like a really frenzied nightlife. Usually I see those scenes in movies and I think, oh gosh.
They were really good
scenes.
I felt
those were great scenes.
I felt it.
I knew I'd been there.
Well, I'd say in general, the whole show, all the stuff that was in there, like all that cinematography, even down to like natural, like the rain. I really
how about when they just would have like, they would show like the passageway in the White Lotus resort and they'd have like people walking off into the distance and then you'd have like just like the one little petal fall down. Like, that's so reminiscent of being in Thailand. Those kind of moments, you can just know what the air smells like, what it feels like, that humidity that's always there. It kind of gives you this like sense of like, I don't know. It's like serenity. It really is. So that's why the juxtaposition of all the crazy partying is so palpable, because if you're just hanging out in nature, it's so peaceful. It's so serene. It's so gorgeous. And like you feel.
And you remember, and then this thing, again, you didn't stay in Koh Samui, but like I just remember that's what's so weird about it is that, there's partying going on, but like, you're on this island and it's not that big. We would go to this crazy drag bar like every night called, it's still there apparently, Christie's Bar. And I don't know, we probably walked there, we kind of walk in the jungle, in the middle of the jungle, and to the middle of town and then walk back.
Well, I think
it's pretty cool.
Simon Cabaret in
Phuket
also, I think we just kind of walked there, but it was interesting because the Simon Cabaret is a ladyboy show in Phuket. They might have it in Bangkok as well, but you would see like tour bus loads of people
would be tour
coming
buses.
And we could just walk to it.
That was like a huge...
It's quite a production.
Yeah, super big production.
I have to say that
it's kind of like Disneyland of drag.
I have not mentioned this already. I was drawn to the Thai culture or whatever at a very early age when I was at my grandparents' house in South Bend, Indiana, and I just happened to be flipping channels. I was like 9 years old, and I saw The King and I.
And would you like to put that headpiece on right now?
No, that's not going to fit.
Okay, that's not going to fit this head.
But anyway, I saw the Thai ballet. They do this rendition of Uncle Tom's Cabin, presented in Thai classical ballet style within The King and I, if you haven't seen it. And I just remember being entranced. So, that was always a dream of mine to go to Thailand. And we also went to Cambodia on that same trip. And it was really, really special. Anyway, I don't know where that fits in with what we're talking about, but it does, again, set the stage for all this craziness. So we have the three ladies. They are having this kind of reconnection. And then there's also this element because one of the masseuses of the White Lotus is this very handsome gentleman whose name is Valentin.
Right. And he's playing a Russian gentleman, but he is Lithuanian in real life. But anyway, that's his character.
And so he is kind of the boy toy. They all see him as like, oh, and the Laurie character, who is recently divorced, or I don't know if she's recently divorced, but she's divorced.
He does healing.
That's right.
Or he's a healer.
Reiki.
I don't know, the Reiki and some other things.
So they are all sort of pressuring her to have a fling with Valentin while she's on this holiday. Why not? Like,
Why not?
What's the problem?
She's free.
And he's even expressed maybe some interest in her, right?
Yeah.
But then over the course of the next few days, whether or not she's shy or whatever it is, or she just thinks it's ridiculous, we have the Jaclyn character who is sort of miffed that her boyfriend back at home is not available to her phone calls. And so she ends up sleeping with Valentin after this crazy night.
After the crazy night, I think she looked at it as if Laurie's not going to take advantage of the situation. Well, then she's going to get some of that.
Yes.
So that's what she does.
Yes.
And so then the Leslie Bibb character in the morning sees Valentin slipping out. So
wearing the same clothes.
In the same clothes. So she knows something went down. So, of course, in the morning, she says something to Carrie Coon's character. Like, oh, you know what? That person. And I think she thinks it's not going to be that big of a deal.
Right.
But then pretty quickly you can see that, like, oh, no.
And she's upset not even so much about Valentin, obviously. She's more upset that this is the same person. She's done this before. She did this way back in high school.
It's a pattern.
And she's seeing it again. And so she's kind of questioning, like, is this really my friend? You know, who is this person?
And we have all had scenarios like this in the past where people that like this, where you're like, after a while, you're like, what are they doing?
Right.
You know, why are you doing this again?
Right. And I think, though, ultimately she comes around because she has a little fling, too, right? She eventually goes to the Muay Thai boxing, and she goes with the Russians again the following night, and she hooks up with the other guy, the really smiley
Is
one.
it Alexia, something
and
like that.
it's actually a very humorous scene that culminates with Alexi's girlfriend coming over because they have these, like, other Russian girlfriends, and she comes over and she kind of chases her out of the window.
Oh, that was fun.
So it's kind of humiliating for the Laurie, but she's there. You can tell she's kind of laughing also at the same time, but she's also like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that," you know. So I guess that kind of helps then to kind of mend this consternation that's going on between.
Yeah, she ends up doing the walk of shame. So at that point, maybe she's just looking at it as like, okay, this is all really stupid and lighthearted.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Right.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to look at it this way. They're going to be out of there in a few days anyway. So does it really matter?
Right.
It's not like she's going to get married to any of these
And ultimately what she ends up saying to the other characters, because they do kind of have it out a little bit. And she says, listen, you know, I may not have a perfect life like the rest of you do. And do they have a perfect life? We don't really know.
Probably not.
I mean, clearly the Jaclyn character does not really seem to have a perfect life. But she says, you know, listen, this is good enough. This is good for me. This is good just to be able to talk about random basic things with you guys. This makes me feel good about my life because this is part of it. So I think that was very sweet. And they end up having this little moment of where they all say that they love each other. And you know, it's again, like you say, it's a friendship that they can return to at any time. And in essence, this will be a memory that they have created and made in Thailand this crazy week.
Well, especially when the bullets were flying.
Especially when the bullets start flying.
I mean, let's face it. When's the last time that we went on a vacation where the bullets were flying? I don't know. Knock wood, never.
Please.
Never,
okay.
never.
All right, now let's start talking about a little bit of this more scary stuff, okay?
This is the scary stuff.
All right, so we're going to move on to the story with Belinda, who is a returning character from season 1. And actually, I would say a fan favorite.
Oh, totally.
From season 1.
I was so happy to see her again. She just exudes such a great vibe.
Yeah.
You just feel
warmth.
Warmth
joy,
and sweetness.
Yes.
And you just
genuine.
And I remember when watching the first season how upset I felt for her that she got duped by Tanya.
Jennifer Coolidge.
And it was like, so it was just so great to see her again. I was like, yeah.
It's funny because we've seen so much of Jennifer Coolidge since the White Lotus season 1. And obviously she's had a career before. In fact, she worked with Parker Posey in Best in Show. I actually worked with her a couple times on Two Broke Girls. She's very nice.
I'm just having a little bit of Jennifer Coolidge burnout personally. Because she's on all these commercials every minute. Like
totally.
Drives me nuts.
But I think the thing is, she was very much like the it girl of that first season of the White Lotus.
Yes.
And so she kind of overshadowed everybody else. Although I do think that the Murray Bartlett character, also people really appreciated him as well. And he really played the hell out of that role.
And he's been getting a lot of roles.
He has.
We're currently watching him
he's
in
on Nine Perfect Strangers,
Nine Perfect
which is
Strangers.
like the White Lotus ripoff. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, Belinda was the fan favorite. So we're very happy to see her in this particular season. And I do think that her story arc is a very interesting one. I can't remember. Do we see the Gary character first? I can't remember.
No, I think we see, well, remember so the opening scene, we know that the son is there, Zion,
Right.
right? And so we don't see her, at least in the first few scenes.
The son is having a therapy session with Amitra, played by Shalini Paris, and she is gorgeous. I kind of wanted to see
I would like a little
of
bit
her.
more of her too.
Yeah, but she was excellent. I'm glad that she remained unscathed. Maybe she'll be in season 4. We'd like to see that, maybe.
Well, who knows where it's going to be at, though?
Right.
Like, could go to India next time and move them all over there.
I can't remember how it's all introduced, but basically Belinda is coming from the White Lotus in Maui, which is where she was in the first season, and she is there to do sort of an exchange program. And I think did they say for a year?
I think so.
Or was it a month? Anyway, so she's there to kind of learn whatever procedures they're doing at the spas at the White Lotus.
And, I did find that was something, again, I know it's a tie-in. Hotels do this because they wanted seasoned employees.
Help kind of brand what the vibe is.
Yeah.
And the experience you're trying to give to the guests.
And that's, for me anyway, that's what kind of brought me going back to New York because I'd already worked there.
Right.
And that's how I met Brady. So anyway, isn't that sweet? But no, it's a cool thing that they're showing this.
So at some point, Belinda sees Gary, or he's going by the name, or no, he's going by Gary, but his name is Greg.
Yeah, she knows him as Greg.
Yeah, and he, of course, is in season 1 and season 2 of The White Lotus because he is the person that Tanya falls in love with while she's there in Maui to scatter her mom's ashes. And they end up getting married. And Tanya is a billionaire, apparently. And she dies at the end of season 2. Spoiler alert. She is on to it that maybe this guy is trying to murder her for her money because she finds a photo of Greg with this other dude that she's been partying with in Italy. And so anyway, she ends up killing them, doesn't she? Isn't that what happens? She kills them or they kill each other. I can't remember. And then she slips and falls off the boat.
Slips and falls off the boat.
Anyway, so her death is suspicious, particularly since Greg now lives in Thailand in this beautiful home, assuming a different identity.
Yeah. And of course, through this storylines of, people talking about their past or when people question them, say, oh, what do you do? What do you do that?
Yes.
It's like this and that, this and that.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about what they do. And I think that is a thing that you do hear of in Thailand all the time.
They talk about it.
I met people who were living there at one point, and I heard them talking about when I stepped down my cost per day to whatever, so I'm moving somewhere else, so I've got this much money, you get a lot of backpackers.
You extend it as long as you can, and if you have to change,
you might have to change your accommodation a little bit, or you get backpackers from Australia. That's a real common thing. I mean, people from all over the world, a lot of English, a lot of Australian.
Really great series that we watched a few years back, maybe during the pandemic, that ties into this. Which is called The Serpent.
The Serpent
also takes place in Thailand, and
but it was in the 70s. But it was very
but it
great.
definitely it's a true story actually of this guy who hoodwinked all these backpackers. It's crazy. Anyway, so in particular with this storyline, Belinda sees Greg and she's like, oh my God, I know that guy. And she puts 2 and 2 together. She realizes, oh my gosh, that's the boyfriend husband of Tanya, who is this woman who really warmed up to Belinda in that first season when she was giving her, procedures or whatever. And she believed her because she has a good heart. Belinda believed when Tanya said, oh, I would love to help you open up your own spa. And then ultimately what happens by the end of the season is that Tanya says, oh, actually, I'm getting married to this dude. So sorry. Bye.
Yeah, I gotta go now.
She leaves on the plane, and there is Belinda waving like all White Lotus staff must do at the end, waving at everybody as the boat leaves. And so she was sort of, just kind of played with by this rich old white lady, dangled this opportunity, and then just took it away because it made her feel better in the moment. It made Tanya feel better in the moment. So it's interesting how it then plays out in this particular season, because Belinda starts up with this relationship with Porchai, who is a local, again, therapist who she's working with. And they end up actually sleeping together, right?
Yeah.
And it's because she's afraid. She uses the excuse she's afraid that there's a monitor lizard loose in her abode, and he can protect her or whatever. But anyway, obviously they've had an attraction for the last couple days. And so he suggests that maybe they open up their own spa.
And I do think it was a little bit of a weird twist there, but I guess it's just showing that human beings are human beings, right? That she in fact is doing the same thing that the Tanya character did to her in a way. Like
Right.
The thing she could have done is she could have made a decision at the end that, okay, I've got money now from this person.
Well, right. Basically what happens is that she consults with Porchai and the hotel manager, whose name was Fabian, couldn't be bothered. Fabian couldn't be bothered with this news.
Fabian didn't want to know.
Because he's protecting the locals. He probably knows there's something fishy with this dude, but he doesn't want to get involved. So he doesn't help out at all. So Belinda has to go to Porchai and also to her son, Zion, who is visiting. And so they decide, it's Greg who approaches Belinda and says, we need to talk. So he brings her up to this party into the house, and she's really worried that, perhaps, something's going to happen here, because she can tell that he knows who she is.
Right.
And she's also done some research on the internet.
Yeah,
to
she
verify.
checked out, and it looked as if he has got rid of her so that he could inherit all this money.
And according to Italian authorities, they're still investigating this, what they see as a murder. Even if it was accidental and she slipped and fell, it still looks very suspicious because all these other people are dead on the boat. So she goes there, and I can't remember exactly the timing, but anyway, he offers her $100,000.
Yeah, which she said she's going to sleep on it, but then it becomes this whole thing where they make a decision, her and her son talking together.
Her son's very business savvy.
Yeah, he's a business degree.
They both know that $100,000 is not going to go very far. And I think if you think about this, again, going back to the morality, this is where it gets weird, because we do have this character who up until now has been so kind and so warm and so just genuine. She has to struggle with this morality. She's pulled into this tangled web just like everybody else in the show, because she has to make a decision. Well, if she doesn't accept the money, he's still a threat to her.
He's probably still going to try to kill her.
Right.
So, I mean, in a way, the best thing to do is what she did. Accept the money, but make sure you get a nice big chunk of money so you can disappear.
Right. It was really amazing how her son actually suggested $5 million, which is way more than I ever...
Yeah, I didn't think...
She chokes on her whiskey when that's going down. But, clearly that can open up a spa, perhaps even a chain of spas.
I think $5 million, depending on where you do it. I mean, if somewhere over there probably would work.
Oh, yeah.
Indonesia, Thailand, whatever.
Sure. But unfortunately, she could have said to Porchai, hey, listen, even at the very least, I will contact you.
Right.
Like stay in touch. Let's stay in touch.
I got to do this. I got to do what I got to do.
Right.
I mean,
because in the end, she leaves him in the same way that she felt in season 1, with someone who's sort of dangling this opportunity and then just leaves, and he's left there waving at her on the boat.
So maybe what will happen is there'll be a new show. It's spin-off.
Yes, the
spin-off.
The
something spa.
But so I guess it's crazy because Greg does wire them $5 million, which according to all the research that the Sun has done is only 1% of his net worth that he got from the estate of his late wife, which is absolutely crazy. Now, I do remember him saying that he had a terminal illness, so I don't know if that was still the case. He didn't seem well, let's be honest. Physically, he didn't really seem well. So maybe he's going to die anyway. And this is where, with the morality and the Belinda, it's kind of okay that she takes the money, in my opinion, because that is what Tanya had wanted at one time. So that's where it all works. The only thing where part doesn't work was her not incorporating Porchai into this in some way, shape, or form.
So that was a little bit of a letdown, but good story. Good story.
Good. That was definitely gave us a lot of tension.
I was worried
throughout
she
the
was
season.
she was gonna die because I kept thinking that when we saw that opening sequence again, where like everybody's being shot up, and I was just thinking like, oh no,
Right, and let's talk about the opening title sequence, which felt like it had clues. Like whenever they would show a cast member's name, they would have an element from this like classical Thai painting. I don't know if it was done up in a certain way, like specifically, or if it actually are pictures from an old painting. I have no idea. But anyway, they seem to match up. Like you see like the Parker Posey, and it's like the monkey smoking out or whatever. Like on the lorazepam or whatever. Like each name that came up, it seemed to offer a clue. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. All right, now moving on to this next storyline.
oh
right?
yeah, well,
Which I know this is one of your favorite characters.
yes. So Chelsea and Rick, but Chelsea was my favorite. I love Chelsea. I mean, but we also have to talk about Chloe too.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
With all this.
It's a segue
Yeah.
because Greg's girlfriend is Chloe, this much younger French
Canadian
model. She's a trip.
I
She
love
is a
her.
trip. Yeah.
I was
She
reading up a
nice
little bit
surprise.
about her just to see. Her name's Charlotte Le Bon. So I was curious. At first I thought, like, is she related to Simon Le Bon?
Or Yasmin
But
Long,
no,
'cause
she's
Yasmin
not.
was a model as well,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Yes, but she was not. But no,
She's a scene stealer, I'd say.
She is a scene stealer, but I will say that the character who played Chelsea,
the actress.
Yeah,
yes,
the actress. Sorry.
Amy Lou Wood.
Amy Lou Wood.
Fabulous.
She's so fun.
Yeah.
You can just feel, again, the joy coming out of her. And like for me, I just felt like these are people that I would have known when I was living in the UK in the 90s. Like I know so many people like this.
You partied with her.
The parties, the ravers, you know what I mean? Like these are like people that I would just kind of like be surrounded by.
I think you're sort of led to believe that her relationship with Rick is kind of similar to Chloe's relationship with Greg, but as this series,
But it's not.
It progresses, you realize it is not. She really looks to him as somebody that she wants to sort of mother or protect or help grow.
I gotta say, I really enjoyed watching Walton Goggins.
Yeah.
His performance, though, too. He's such a dude. He's given me a cross between like a Jack Nicholson and Jim Morrison, but with the bald. He's just got such a good vibe. He's really interesting to watch.
He is a dude. We, of course, watched him in Fallout as
That's
well.
right. He was in Fallout
where
with
he played.
the little missing the nose. Remember he had like.
I imagine he'll be back for season 2 of that.
So.
But yeah, his character here is really, I would say, maybe the most tragic of this particular season.
Yeah.
In a season where there are a lot of tragic moments, but he is on this quest to avenge the death of his father, or who he believes is his father. And I guess when his mother was on her deathbed, she revealed that the guy who killed his father was this sort of real estate developer. And through some research with his buddy, I guess, Frank, maybe, I don't know, this dude, Sam Rockwell, is a trip. He finds out that Jim Hollinger still is living in Thailand, and he is married to his wife, Sritala.
Who is the owner of the White Lotus Resort.
And she
in
is
Thailand.
fabulous. She is portrayed by Patravedi Majudhon. And she's great. I think she probably is playing a character similar to who she really is in real life.
Yeah.
It seems like she's had a really long career in theater and music and film.
Well, and I even loved when they did show these kind of pictures or videos of her in the past.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure those are the real deal, like from other
for
performances.
sure, yeah.
It was very cool.
Yeah.
So
Rick is hiding all of this from Chelsea, and he's just not letting her in, partially because, he has it in his mind as a revenge plot that he's going to kill this man, avenge his father's death. And so if he were to tell that to her, obviously Chelsea would be upset and whatever. But he kind of alludes, that this is what's going on.
yeah, I think she feels it, and she's like, doesn't want him to even go. She's trying to keep him there at any cost.
Yeah.
And that's why she even pushes him into getting the treatment with the one lady. Right. And in fact, it seems like they're making some headway with his trauma.
He's so miserable. He is so miserable, this guy. But you can see when he goes to the therapy, even after the second session, he's already starting to sort of figure things out or put pieces together, but he's still determined to take this opportunity because he knows that this guy is married to the person who owns the hotel that they're at, and he can overhear and find out where they're going to be. And he finds out that they are going to be in Bangkok during the week. So he makes plans to go to Bangkok, and it is at that time.
And he makes up this crazy story that he's like a casting director, right? Or his buddy
he's the producer.
He's the producer, and his buddy is making the movie, and da 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 da. We've got this part for you, this role.
Right.
It's very loosey goosey.
Yes,
and that's why I kept thinking,
oh my gosh, like could they have not done a little bit more research?
That's why I would say to you, if you were going to do that, and you came all the way over here to do that, and that was like you finally developed this, you really should be spending some time with your backstory.
Your foil. Yeah, your backstory.
So their backstory was like, obviously, it was very uncomfortable, and you're watching it, and you're going like, it's so obvious, right, that everybody can see that this is phony, except for the actress, because she wants it to be real. Even when she thinks it's kind of fake, then she's like, oh, well, because she wants to get a...
probably the way out of that from a writing standpoint is by the time that Rick gets to Thailand or Bangkok and he meets Frank, he realizes that Frank has given up his partying. He is now also meditating and all this kind of stuff. And so that is sort of switched him off of who Rick knew him to be. So that's why when they go to do this little scam here or have this little, cover up story, Frank realizes, I am going to need some whiskeys for this.
Yeah.
Right. He's rusty. He can't quite get into it. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, he does this. They have this meeting, and then Rick takes this opportunity to go speak to Jim, and he's sort of trying to pick his brain about doing business in Thailand because they're going to be making this movie in Thailand.
Yeah.
And so what happens when he goes to meet him?
Well, then pretty quickly he accuses this guy of killing his father, and that, you might have known my mother, was it Doris or whatever her name was. And so he goes into this whole tirade and that you've ruined my life.
Right.
The only thing that Jim says is he said, well, your mother was a big liar or something like that. But that's all we get.
Yeah.
We don't get anything more than that.
He says some derogatory things towards the mother, which forces Rick to then...
He pushes her.
He has a gun, right? He has a gun that was supplied by Frank, but obviously he's thinking about what Chelsea has said. He's thinking about what
he did threaten him with a gun, too, but then he just can't go through with it.
So he just pushes it.
He just pushes him over. And I just kept thinking at that point, you go, okay, you are stupid, because it's like they know where you're staying.
Okay, yeah, this was crazy. So they leave.
That part was always a little weird.
He grabs Frank and they leave, and they're like scurrying out, and they pass the bodyguards that work for the owner of the hotel and the White Lotus. And so, yeah, exactly. They know exactly.
Everybody knows who this guy is.
So that's why I think you and I both assumed, okay, even though they've escaped this moment, and you can imagine that in that moment you do feel like he's kind of said what he needed to say. In fact, when he gets back to the White Lotus and he sees Chelsea, things seem to be okay. Like he seems like he's okay with it. Like he's fine with what he said. I couldn't do it. I couldn't kill him, but at least he confronted him.
Yeah.
Right. So what happens, Doug, on this final day of everybody's wonderful holiday at the White Lotus?
Well, the owner of the hotel is coming back to the island because she would like to get a photo with the actress, Jaclyn. Yes. So she's coming back to get a photo, and that has been spoken about before. Would it be okay? Like Fabian had asked, would it be okay if she had a photo with you? One thing we didn't actually mention, which I thought was really funny, is that Fabian's singing debut and how terrible it was.
Oh my God, I don't remember it.
Yeah, I mean, it was very non-eventful, but it was terrible.
But it's so funny because I think you and I both said the Fabian character, we also know that guy.
Oh, we totally know that
from working in the
There are so many people like that. Typically, it's usually the manager or the concierge.
Yeah. Somebody
like that. I could pick, and half the time they're German. I don't know. They just hit the nail on the head.
They did.
They got it. But so they come back, and then what we start to see unfold is that
the bodyguards are looking.
The bodyguards see Rick. there's a double function going on here.
Why didn't Rick just pick up Chelsea and like leave immediately?
Yeah, that's what I would
know. But anyway, they start sort of like hunting for him, and then Rick is like, Chelsea can tell like what's going on, and he's really upset. And so then is it Rick who goes and seeks out the therapist again?
Rick goes to see the therapist, but she is actually just going to give Zion his session. And this is that moment that we see in the first scene too, is that like they're in the middle of their therapy session. Right. So Rick is pleading with her, I really need you, da. So I mean, this is what's crazy, is that if she had done something for him, maybe he could have hidden out or something. I don't know.
Right.
Or maybe it would have been even worse.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right? Maybe everybody else would have died. Yeah. But that does not happen.
Yeah.
And then
a shootout begins. And this is what's really crazy. So it all happens really, really fast. And I suppose before we get to that climax, we should talk about Gaitok. Okay.
Yeah.
Who I may be pronouncing incorrectly, but he is definitely, again, maybe one of these people that has the kind of moral center of the show here. He is a really, really good guy. He may be one of the first people you see in the series. I can't remember. Because doesn't he come to work? He gives Mook a ride on the motorcycle because hers isn't working or something like that. So you see that relationship already kind of building, and it is definitely a through line throughout the episode. You see her as this very sweet, charming young woman, and he is definitely a young, charming guy, but he's much more sort of pure and naive than she turns out to be. She is somewhat seduced by these kind of like wild and crazy, the Russian dudes who, as it turns out, actually have robbed the White Lotus boutique. And it is not until they go to the Muay Thai boxing event that Gaitok can tell, oh, that's them.
That's who I saw.
Because when the robbers came in, it was Valentin who had sort of distracted him at that moment.
Right.
And then
so he learns that it's the Russian brigade
yes.
that has been doing this jewelry heist here.
Right.
And they need to do it because they don't have any money.
And this all factors into sort of Gaitok's storyline for the season, because he's trying to date Mook, but he's not cool enough for her. He's not savvy enough for her. She wants someone who's like a little bit more city-fied.
She wants a badass.
Well, I don't know if she wants a badass, but she definitely wants someone who's like going to get her out of this wherever they are.
Right. And I mean, when
a little bit more worldly,
when they speak about
confident,
him going in as maybe he can become the bodyguard for the owner, and she gets all excited. Like, so that's what she's looking for.
She needs to step up.
She needs some status.
Yeah, because he's been doing this job for a really long time and staying at the same level. And then when this robbery happens, he's getting a lot of heat on him, which is then what causes the security team to provide him with a gun. This is the same gun that, of course, Tim stole when we were talking about that storyline with.
And I mean, that was that whole thing. Of course, we are rooting for him so much to just be like, please get that gun back.
You can feel the pressure.
Yeah, I was just thinking, oh my God, this poor dude is going to get sacked. And that's the end.
Yeah.
So thankfully, he gets it just in time.
Yeah.
In fact, the other guy thinks
potentially saving Tim's life at the time.
Yeah, exactly. So in a way, he saved Tim's life. He's got the gun back. But sadly, this is the gun that is going to be used later, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they take him to this shooting practice and he's like really good.
Yeah, he's super good.
And I guess that
guess that was good practice.
Yeah. So this all comes to this big climax because the date with Mook didn't go so well, because he basically is saying how he's never going to get that promotion, and he's going to quit because he can't do this job.
He keeps thinking he's going to follow the Buddha. Remember that was like
he keeps thinking, what would Buddha do?
Yeah, what would Buddha do?
Scenario. And he doesn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
And then Mook is saying, well, you have to remember that we live in this reality of life, and not everybody's great. Not everybody's.
And you know what? She has a point.
She does have a point.
It's true, because she's in between both worlds, whereas Gaitok is kind of just thinking along, just keeping it on the spiritual path. But yeah, you have to tread between the ideal and the functioning world that we're in. So that's like with anything. We all have to do this. Can't all be mumbo jumbo all the time. Right. It's got to be entrenched in reality, right? Don't you know that?
So it definitely gets entrenched in reality when
does.
Rick basically goes up to confront this gentleman again during this shootout, and he knows that Jim has a gun in his jacket because he had shown him earlier, right? So, because at this point, Rick doesn't have his gun anymore because he gave it back to Frank, or they threw it in the garbage or something in Bangkok.
Yeah, they got rid of it.
So he's not armed. So he steals the gun from Jim, and then he shoots him and says, "This is, for you killing my father." And right away,
the big reveal,
Sritala says, He is your father.
I kind of felt like that was going to happen. I kind of felt that.
Yeah, I think we had said that a couple episodes prior. There's something about him that sort of looks like him a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
This is a gentleman. His name is Scott Glenn. He was in Castle Rock. I remember him.
Right. I remember you said
Detective Pangborn.
Detective Pangborn. Okay.
And so I thought that, yes, we kind of maybe expected this, but it still was a really powerful moment. I think in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh. And then it is at that time that Gaitok knows there's all the shooting going on, so he has to get the gun. And his boss, right, the major domo of the hotel, says, shoot him.
Multiple times. Shoot him.
And he is so nervous in that moment, and he's thinking of all these things. And unfortunately, Rick is carrying... Oh, in the shootout, we didn't mention that Chelsea had been hit.
Right. Chelsea had been hit. At first, we don't see that.
Right.
But he's bringing her... I don't know, somewhere he thinks but I mean, it's obvious she's either dead or she's going to be gone in a moment. So that was really sad because she's a fan favorite.
So Gaitok, he pushes through that battle within him, and he, with that good shot, he shoots Rick.
And that's when we
fall into
the pond. And that's when we figure out that the first scene that we see, it's both of those characters who are floating in the pond.
Right. What a tangled web we weave.
I gotta tell you, I found it very stressful at times.
Yes,
too.
I did too.
It's really like this.
I
was like, God, I need a sedative after watching this show.
I agree. There were definitely on the seat of your pants. No, wait, what? You know what I mean?
On the seat of your pants. Totally on the seat of your pants.
Those moments where you're just like, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, what?
And I think that is what this show, has done well all along. It's
but I feel like this season was better than the last one. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'd like to see the last one again.
Yeah, I mean, we really did like last season because we loved, of course, Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah.
We loved the hotel manager. She was fantastic.
Yeah.
We loved the young prostitutes.
Yeah, that was really cute.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I would definitely watch that season again as well. And even the first one, I think, deserves another watch. But one other thing I wanted to mention, a couple other things I wanted to mention about this season, though, the music is always,
it's really so great.
But I think in particular this season, the music was really, really great because you have this wonderful back catalog of all this great kind of Thai pop music that is interspersed.
Oh, yeah. They had a lot of like kind of 60s pop music. Like in Thailand and Cambodia, they had a big love of like American music.
Surf rock.
Rock and roll. And that a lot of bands at that time would do copy or cover versions of like US hits, which of course like the Cambodian stuff all got destroyed by the Khmer Rouge.
Right.
And there's a band that we really love called Dengue Fever, who are a hybrid. It's like guys from California and the lead singer is Cambodian. And they do these songs by these artists that were lost. But it's kind of the same vibe, It's very groovy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of compilations out that you can get reissues of like the 60s Thai music.
I listened to this again. One side's better than the other, but it's pretty cool. And again, like I say, I just think overall the music was really, really great in this season. The gentleman's name who has scored it is Cristobal Tapia de Veer. And then they brought in somebody else who is of Thai descent, Perana Visichantagarun.
Do you remember? I thought was really weird and I don't remember what scene exactly it was. It was probably like a nightclub scene where it was like the heavy breathing and the sex kind of like that was really tripped out. Like all of it was very trippy, but that was really like right in your ear. It was really weird.
Yeah, good sound design, great cinematography. The other thing I wanted to definitely bring up were the use of the macaque monkeys. They broke away to the monkeys watching from the jungle quite often, and usually in a moment of say, ridicule or judging of whatever the humans were doing. And I think that was really effective. They also had the statues, of course, as well, that were also, you know, the monkeys that were also having these emotions, expressions that looked very, you know, kind of judgmental. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with the monkeys?
Oh, yeah, the
Southeast
monkeys.
Asia?
Let me tell you something. The monkeys are no joke. But I mean, the little baby monkeys are really so adorable. I mean, one of my favorite things that we ever did was, you know, going off the side of the road and buying little bananas and giving them to the little baby monkeys and like sitting there like undoing it. But the big scary monkeys, let's talk facts. You don't want to mess around with them because they got the teeth that are like this big. There was this one monkey where we were crossing a little bridge or something. I don't know.
We were going to a temple and it's only accessible by a bridge. So we went to the temple. There might have been a ceremony going on. It was kind of crazy. This was actually in Indonesia, this particular one, but similar kind of monkey. And as we were coming back from the temple, you have to cross this bridge.
Yeah.
And this monkey was basically guarding
and like baring his teeth, and everybody was freaked out, like, oh boy, get away from him.
Yeah.
Because if you get a monkey bite, you're dead.
Forget it.
And then the other thing is that you do have to be so careful around these monkeys because they literally will steal your backpack.
Yeah,
they'll open it up while they'll open up zippers. They know how to do it.
Camping in the forest where there's bears, you can't have any food exposed because they can smell it and they will literally steal your bag off of you.
And they'll
do it very
you.
cleverly. You know, they can just steal it and run away with it.
Yeah, they'll run away with it. So you can see them. They're off on the side. If you leave something for 1 second, they'll sit there and they'll unzip the thing and they'll take it out. So, you know, they're smart.
And I like that. Again, it kind of plays back into this whole concept of morality. You know, I've been talking about this a lot recently with everything going on in the world about how just despicable so many humans are. So you can imagine us being close relatives of monkeys. I'm sure there are despicable monkeys as well that will steal the banana right out from underneath you. But they can also see, again, you know, we watched that.
What about cats that will steal a Cheez-It right out of your
That's
hand?
true. That's true. We watched that great documentary, though. I think it was about orangutans, though. I can't remember. It was when we were in Mexico a couple of years ago. And same kind of thing where they studied these primates in the jungle for a period of time.
Yeah, it's an apes program. I think it was on Netflix, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and it talks about how like certain orangutans would be ostracized from the group, like they were antisocial or whatever. It's like similar kind of things that are going on with humans are going on with the primates as well. So I thought it was very fascinating and a great little thing that they used in this particular season that we didn't see in the other seasons, right? Because you don't have monkeys running around Italy or Hawaii.
No monkeys in Italy, unfortunately.
All right, so we kind of got through it a lot there. I just want to ask a couple things. Did you have a favorite storyline or a favorite character?
I think I already said. I think my favorite character still was Chelsea. I just loved. She felt so familiar to me. Mm-hmm. So I think that was number one. And she was ready to just screw around with the system. You know, like she didn't care. She really was super free-spirited.
She was free-spirited, and she was playing with Saxon, if you will.
Yeah.
But she never lost her control of the situation.
Totally.
And she was still always committed to the Rick. She never did anything that was
she was not shady at all.
Yeah.
Like, she really was very moral on that level. Yeah. Whereas the other ones were just kind of like... I mean, let's face it, the Chloe, she was all over the place. She was wild. I really liked Chloe.
We didn't really talk about how, at the end... She had told Greg that they had like this like wild night of whatever. I don't want to call it a foursome because it wasn't really that, but it, you know, clearly she had relations with Lochlan. Okay.
Yeah.
So she reveals what happens, and then I guess it comes out that like Greg, in order to like feel good about all this, he wants to be a voyeur.
Right.
He
wants the is it the cuckold relationship is what he's looking for.
Yeah.
So he wants to see them do it again, and he wants to watch.
And that's kind of how that storyline ends, because while Saxon turns her down for that particular adventure, the last shot is of Chloe in that storyline is Chloe like finding this young stud in the pool or whatever.
Yeah, and then
Greg's far away.
Greg going like, yeah, you'll do. No, I think that was. Listen, they could bring her back too.
Yeah.
Because she's a really
she could
good.
be at any White Lotus. That one.
She could leave Greg and go somewhere else. She could go to
who
another
I'd like
person.
to see back too is the prostitutes. I can't remember their names, unfortunately.
The Italian women
from the Italian season.
Yeah.
There was the one who sang. Remember, she was also
she was great.
so good. But the other one was really a great.
See,
actress
and that's
as
the
well.
other thing. What I love about White Lotus is I love the fact that they use actors from all different countries. So to me, that's so refreshing.
Yes.
Because it's like so boring. Like
I think some people said that this season felt like it was like slow and it like unraveled slowly. But in my opinion, it unraveled just at the pace that it should. And I think maybe some people might have seen like the Mook and the Gaitok storyline as being like too hard to follow because it's not in English or whatever. It's like, get over yourself. Like,
I was thinking that
he was my favorite character.
Right.
Every time he was on screen, I was super engrossed. I wanted to see more of. So for me, that's my favorite character. And I did appreciate the Chelsea as well. The Ratliff storyline is my favorite, I think, overall, just because I loved to see that battle of the father, but he wasn't really my favorite character. And then I really loved the ladies, too. I thought they were really, it was like a fresh breath of fresh air every time they were on screen because they were very different from
It was a good
everything
balance.
else.
I'd say overall, like it just felt like each little story and all the character pods, so to speak, were all in balance. It was really good. I really enjoyed it.
Really good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, shall we come in for a landing?
We could come in for a landing.
Season? This is our gauge of how highbrow or lowbrow a TV series or episode is. In this case, it's going to be the season 3 of White Lotus. What would you give this particular season of White Lotus on the Browmeter?
So I'm gonna push it. This will probably be the highest one I've ever given, I think.
Oh, okay.
How about I give it a 4.2?
I think you've given us episode higher than
Have
that.
I?
But maybe not a season.
But that's a season.
4.2. Okay.
I'd say 4.25. Could we just be like,
that's
does that
good.
make
I like that.
better
I like
for
a
your,
a
4.25 out of 5. I feel like it's really good. I mean, there were a couple little things that could have been tighter, but I think overall it was pretty strong.
Yeah, I think the acting was really, really good from beginning to end. And I do think that, although, like you say, there might have been a couple missed opportunities for certain things, I think overall it all kind of connected really, really well. I'm going to give it just a 4. I'm just going to give it a basic 4 on that. And so, yeah, I mean,
that's pretty good.
Ultimately, really, really good. I'm not going to do the math right now to decide where this falls into play of our overall score, but we can do that in a couple episodes maybe. But this will be a 4.125.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
As the average for season 3 of The White Lotus.
Yeah. It was very enjoyable. And I would say it'll make me look forward to going back to watching the seasons again, the season 1 and season 2.
Now, drop in the comments, what is your favorite season of White Lotus? I already said, though, to drop in the comments if you already knew a 2, if you already knew Parker Posey before the White Lotus. So you have to differentiate. If you're going to drop a 2, it's got to be either because you knew, maybe I got to change that to a 5. Drop a 5 if you've already known Parker Posey before the White Lotus, and drop a 1, 2, or 3 to let us know what your favorite season of the White Lotus is. Now, what are we going to be covering next?
So we are going to be delving back into Knots Landing, season 2.
Finally,
It's taken so long.
Promise it will be our next episode.
Yeah, so it's probably a few weeks away.
It's still a couple few
There's
weeks
still
away.
a few other things going on, a lot of things.
Yeah.
You
In
know.
fact, we want to, if you're in the LA area, we would like to invite you over to Barnsdall Art Park on July 11th. I'm sure this episode will come
July
out
11th or August 8th. And then the other thing is, if you ever want to check out our DJ stuff, we have a DJ moniker. It's us together. It's DB Discotheque.
I'll put it a little
He'll put it down
something
on the
there
link
so you can
down
see it.
below.
But if you want to get tickets for the Barnsdall, it is a fundraiser for the Barnsdall Art Park. We DJ vinyl sets. The next one, our theme is Around the World. Perhaps we'll play some Thai.
We might play some Thai
pop
music.
hits,
We might play
perhaps.
Thai music.
Anyway,
I
it's
don't know.
vinyl only. It's really a fun evening.
It's like 5:30 to 9 o'clock on a Friday night. There's a bunch of stuff going on there.
It's a fantastic
food
evening.
truck.
I can't even talk about it enough. So
Yeah.
just come on out. And
party.
meet us at the Barnsdall on July 11th, August 8th, or actually September 12th as
Yes,
well.
yes.
All right. So We will see you then for our next episode in a couple weeks covering Knots Landing Season 2. We're super excited. I just ask you to be patient with us about the Knots Landing. I know that's what we started with a long time ago.
Sawadee.
And we diverted, but we will return to the cul-de-sac soon.
Sawadee ka.
Sawadee ka. Sawadee ka.
Brady, dinner's ready.